Hey guys, this is John. I'm playing Ricotero in the 15-minute pool on ICC. I played this opponent maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago in an Alekine's defense, and I won that game, although I shouldn't have. So I played knight f6 in that one. Let's see what I'm going to do this time around. I think I'm going to play double king pawn. We'll play it a little closer to the vest. He seems to have gained some rating in the meantime. So he's at 2268. That's a healthy 15-minute rating. He's at his peak. Oh, and he plays the Ponziani. Okay, c3. Yeah, I had a game also in the 15-minute category where I was on the white side of this opening. I just tried it out. And I played d5, or my opponent played d5 rather. And then after queen a4, bishop d7, gambited a pawn. I think knight f6 is a good way of counteracting this opening, though, and that's what I have studied previously from the black side, so I'll play that. And then after d4, the move is take. Then they usually play d5 and you go knight e7, and then they can take on e5. But as I recall, that position is fine for black. Just have to recall what to do. So it's knight e7. Let me think about this. Knight e7, knight takes e5. I don't play d6 then because there's a check on b5. And I don't have bishop d7 because a bishop takes d7 with the knight supporting. So I believe it goes knight e7, knight takes e5, knight g6. You challenge that knight on e5. If they trade, we take with the h-pawn. And if they go queen e2, we can just play queen e7. And white will have a slight space advantage, but that's about it. So this is the known antidote to the Ponziani if black just wants to play purely to equalize. That d5 move I mentioned on move 3 is a lot sharper. So let me pre-move this capture. Good chance he might just withdraw the knight too. Might play knight f3. In that case, I still don't want to play d6 because of queen a4 check, forking the king and the knight. He would win a piece in that case. But I can simply play bishop e7 and get ready to castle. That would be a decent way to play. I remember in playing this player previously that they were conducting the game pretty well, but they fell apart pretty rapidly in time pressure. In a rook ending where they were up a pawn. They played it pretty suboptimally. So I'm going to try to apply the pressure on the clock, even if we get into a pretty sterile position, just kind of looking like it. I know a lot of games in this variation end in draws, just because the position is pretty banal. The structure is nearly symmetrical. So queen d4. If queen d4, I take on e5, they take e4. I would have to play queen e7 in that case. Looks okay, but maybe I have better. I could play queen e7 myself right away. They take e4, I take e5 with my queen. That just looks like an early queen trade. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that line. Knight f6. Knight f6 would sort of threaten queen e7. Wouldn't sort of threaten queen e7. It would threaten queen e7. If queen e7, I think the queens are going to get swapped. Queen takes e4, queen takes e5. It's looking pretty equal. Yeah, I'll play knight f6. Let's keep material on the board. Keep the queens on. Let's pre-move that recapture. I believe I'm at my peak 15-minute rating at the moment, 2375. Let me verify that actually, just out of curiosity. Yeah, I'm at my peak at the moment. Plays bishop e2, makes sense. I could just play bishop e7. Bishop d6 might be interesting to attack h2 a couple times. It seems artificial, though. I mean, I'd rather have my pawn on d6 in order to get the light square bishop out. So let's just play bishop e7. Likely he will castle. I can play d6 in that case. White is going to have a little more space in the coming middle game, but with my structure being almost free of any defects, I'm not unhappy about that. Just play d6. Previously, I was hesitant to do this because I had a knight on e4, and I was often vulnerable to like queen a4 or bishop b5 check. Yeah, c4, just reinforcing the center, making way for knight to c3. I wonder if I castle, if they're going to try to play h4 and go for the attack rather than castling themselves. I probably should castle now, though. Don't think that's a decision I want to delay. If castle's and simply knight c3, where's my play coming from, though? Knight d7? I could play knight d7 right now, because if queen takes g7, then bishop f6 traps the queen. Maybe that's the way to go about this. Knight d7, knight c3, bishop f6. If they give a check on e4, I can just play queen e7. I mean, knight d7 also discourages the h4 move, too. I think the game could go knight d7, knight c3, bishop f6, queen d2. And then maybe knight c5. Let's try it. So again, I think this pawn is immune because of queen takes g7, bishop f6. This queen has nowhere to go. So I'm anticipating knight c3, bishop f6, queen back to d2. And I think I like knight c5 in that case, primarily to keep their knight out of e4 is the main reason for that. So let's do it. If the game goes queen d2, knight c5, and they play b4, trying to kick my knight away, then I have knight e4, and after knight takes e4, I can take the rook on a1. If knight c5, bishop takes c5, d takes c5, queen e3 check, I have queen e7 to defend. It's no problem there. So let's go for it. Just playing a little waiting game. I want to see what they do with their king. I don't want to castle myself quite yet because I'm sort of worried he might whisk his king away to the queen side and play h4, h5, for instance, going for the initiative. But if, let's say, they castle now on the queen side, well, maybe then I play bishop f5, and if I'm quick enough, like I might be able to castle myself on the queen side, or maybe keep my king in the center, maybe play like king f8 if necessary, but not fully commit to castling. Then I can keep my rook on the h-file. It'll be harder for white to attack me in that case. So this sometimes happens where both sides will shadow box and attempt to get the opponent to commit their king first. Yeah, like I think this move, h3, is kind of in the same vein. He wants to see what I do with my king. So we're both just feeling each other out here. I could play bishop f5, maybe g4 then. Bishop f5, g4, knight e4, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, f3. That traps my bishop. So I have to be careful about that. Castling. What about castling? If castles h4, looks a little scary. I could play a5 right here, but b4 is not yet a threat, so I feel weird about playing that when it's not an issue. Maybe bishop d7? Just a solid developing move. I don't know. Somehow I feel castles is the most consistent move right now. Be hard to dispute that. But I also feel like there's a good chance he's going to get some threats going against my king if I commit to that right away. I could play kind of similar to him, move like a6. All right, I'm gonna brave the attack. Let's see if he comes after me. So if h4, I might play rook e8, just take the file. If h5, then let's say pawn takes h5. Okay, and he just goes short. So this could shape up like our previous game in the Alekhines, where he had a slight space advantage, but not much else really. Let's just play rook e8. So maybe a timely knight e4 can be played now. Knight takes e4, rook takes e4. My dark square bishop should have good scope. I think my light square bishop might struggle to be super relevant. Likely I'll put it on d7. f5 would be desirable, but g4 can always kick me away. Rook a e1. So maybe indicating that Ricotero feels like the kingside rook could be useful where it's at on the f file. Yeah, this is remarkably similar to our previous game. It's kind of funny. Maybe they're gearing up for b4. a5 I could play. Yeah, let's do a5. Nice little space gainer. Rules out b4. Can still take on c5, but I mean, if I were white, I'd be hesitant to do that because black has a monstrous dark square bishop. I mean, maybe my bishop even gains the use of the d4 square supported by that c-pawn, if that occurs. Well, at least for now, so much for my plan of trying to pressure him on the clock. I'm the one who's behind in time. Typical. Might as well pre-move a recapture. I think he's going to play down the e-file, or maybe some combination of a f and g pawn advance. Because there's not much to do in the center for him, nor is there anything to do on the queen side. It's hard for him to arrange anything meaningful on that wing. So yeah, a move like this makes sense. That does block his f-pawn. I wonder if bishop f5 is gaining in strength a little bit now. Bishop f5. If he plays, let's say g4, can I go bishop d3 in that case? Bishop takes c5, bishop takes f1. I think I can get away with that, actually. Yeah, I can do that. Okay. Let's try it. g4, bishop d3. g5 is nothing. I can even take on c3 then, hitting the queen. Again, if take on c5, I can just take back with my pawn. I can even play rook takes e1. What if I take back with the pawn, they take e8, and then play d6? Do I mind that continuation? I took with my c-pawn. It makes way for their knight to come in d5. It's kind of a clearance sacrifice, but other than that, I think it's fine for me. Let's take. He might try to take over the file, so trade on e8 and then rook e1. And then let's say I had to be careful with my queen, because if queen d7, there's g4, and the bishop would be trapped then. So maybe on rook e1, I should play like queen f8 would be a better move. That way I can look to play rook e8. Only problem is queen f8, maybe knight b5 is annoying. Attacking c7. So maybe queen d8 should be played. Yeah, that looks like a safer choice. That guards c7. If knight b5, I can play bishop d7 and try to attack the knight, encourage it to retreat. How to unwind, though? I want to make this rook do something. This piece hasn't moved yet. I feel like my bishops are pretty good where they're at, especially the dark square bishop. Light square bishop's a little questionable. I mean, if ever g4 is played, I might be just looking at having to put it back on d7. I could flick in bishop g5 somewhere to attack that queen. At the moment, it doesn't really seem to do much. And they could even play queen d1 if I were to play bishop g5. As I said, this is amazingly similar to our last game, even though the opening was completely different. In our last game, there was one open file, the e-file, and he had a slight space advantage, and I had a solid position. It's the same narrative. Okay, so this gives me the option of taking on c3 and messing up his pawns a little bit. I mean, if I do that, let's say take, queen d6 or f6, he can invade on e7 is the thing. Okay, what's the point of this move otherwise? Not sure I see it. And if queen d6, knight b5 hits my queen with tempo, I could voluntarily drop this bishop to d7. I could play a4 maybe? Trying to go a3, weaken his position. Maybe that's interesting. I'm worried that I'm missing a tactical shot here, but I don't see it. I really don't. Okay, let's go a4. My back rank's guarded. There's not going to be a queen infiltration on e7 so long as I have this dark square bishop. g4, we're just playing bishop d7. And then if knight e4, we can stick the bishop on d4. It's nice. Okay, so he just plays this in reply. Still, I feel like I've gained a little something because of this. Now this pawn is fixed on a dark square. Maybe I can play bishop d7, planning queen f8 and rook e8. Bishop d7, bishop g4, perhaps. Not that I'm afraid of that, just kind of stating that might happen. Could play rook a6, maybe try to come to b6, but this pawn needs guarding. Okay, let's just play bishop d7 voluntarily. I always got to be mindful of d6 too. He might just throw that in at a convenient time for white. But as of now, I can just take it. I would lose b7, but then rook b8. I don't think his use of the d5 square will be amounting to much. Yeah, bishop g4, that makes sense. I can just trade off all the minors if I wanted. Let's take this guy to start. Takes with the queen. Bishop d4, knight b5. I can take b2 then. All right, let's do that. You should totally slow down and think, Ricotero, so I can get some time back on the clock. He's been pretty speedy so far. I'm starting to like my position, though, because I feel like this bishop could be relevant, could be a bigger factor than his knight. Here, maybe rook a6 is interesting, trying to swing over to f6. I still guard the a4 pawn then. e8's vulnerable, but he can't do anything with it. Rook a6, d6. Am I concerned? Rook takes d6, queen takes b7, rook f6. Looks Looks like I have the initiative in that case. All right, let's do it. He can't play knight e4. Well, maybe he could, but b2 is weak in that case. So again, the line I was mentioning, d6, rook takes d6, queen takes b7, rook f6, hitting this guy. Yeah, he does have knight e4, but then I can come back to b6, in fact, and then go take on b2 with my rook. That's got to be good for me. Yeah, this bishop will be a pain for him on both sides of the board. It already is. It's attacking f2, and if ever the knight moves, b2 is hanging. I wonder if it ever makes sense to play king h7 voluntarily. Maybe it does. Like now I could try it if I wanted. But f7 hangs. I don't want to do that. So if rook f6, he's coming to g4 with the queen. Is that the idea? Yeah, and then a5's under, or a4's under attack. How about queen d7? Good move, decent move. Looks okay. If queen g4 and I take his queen, rook e8 check is a potentially irritating in between move. King h7, he takes. I take c3, he takes with his b2 pawn, but c7 is weak. Knight b5 instead. Okay. Yeah, it's a good move. C6. Maybe I should just trade my bishop for that knight now. Not super happy about this development, but maybe forced. Okay. I don't know, bishop f6. My bishop isn't effective there. It blocks my rook from coming to f6 too. So maybe I should just content myself with this. I think it's still pretty darn equal. Queen e4, c5. Looks level. If queen e4 I take on d5, they might take with the c pawn. I guess in that case I could play rook d6 and gobble the d5 pawn, but I was worried my d4 pawn might get cut off. I wonder if d6 is playable. Intending queen takes d6, rook e8 check, king h7, queen takes f7. So on d6, I probably have to play c5. But then they have rook e7. Ooh. Okay, yeah, d6 is something I've overlooked until now. Ouch. Yeah, that move could be bad. I'm glad he did not find that. I'm just going to play c5. We'll check afterwards, but I have a feeling d6 could have been strong there for him. Now this should be fine. He can go into a rook ending, but the weakness of that b2 pawn I think will always keep white's aspirations in check. Let's say queen e8. No, so we got to do this. Is he going to bring his rook to d8 now? He's going to bring his king over. Interesting. So let's go attack that b2 pawn. You got to play actively in rook endgames. That's key. But the thing is, wonder if his king is close enough to like corral my d-pawn. I wonder if he can advance his own d-pawn. Like, rook c8 is critical here. Rook c8, rook takes b2, rook takes c5. Don't have a lot of time to analyze it, unfortunately. d3, king e1. I don't know. I could have played rook d6 on the previous move, but then like rook c8, b6, rook a8 would probably win this a4 pawn. This is remarkably similar to what happened last time. Just this entire game. Like last time he also got into a better rook endgame, but blew it. So let's hope for a repeat, shall we? If he plays rook e2, that would be really nice for me. That would be basically admitting that he doesn't see an aggressive way to proceed. But if he plays rook c8, I'm going to be a little concerned. Rook c8, rook takes b2, rook takes c5, d3, threatening. Okay, so he did play that. I'm going to try to get my king involved ASAP. I'm going to go here and try to play king g6, king f6, at least get it in range of his d-pawn, like within the square, let's say. This is also useful. It stops h4, f4 in the future. I'm not sure his king coming over like helps him that much. I guess he can come all the way to c2, maybe, to guard this pawn so he can free up his rook. But always I'll retain the option of d3. Okay, for now, let's just get closer once again. Maybe I should be playing rook b3 and going for b5. It's a good plan, actually. Let's do it. Got a minute and 20 left. If d6, I have rook back to b6, and I keep that pawn under wraps. But yeah, actually, I don't know that I should have done this now. Rook e8. So now I might have to come directly back here. That's not good. Because the threat is d6 at this point. Yeah, my last move was a mistake. Okay, gotta come back here. That was unfortunate. Rook b3. Huh. King's a bit cut off. Just gonna wait with my rook, see what he does. Okay, I'm gonna do something potentially risky. Let's go here. I'm gonna try to go d3 check. This could be a bad decision. Rook f6, he would have played f3. Okay, gotta go check now.
Check.
King takes d3. Let's take here. Well, I'm going to have rook b3 coming up. Yeah, and this f2 pawn is under attack as well.
Time warning.
Let's give a check.
Check.
First of all. First things first. Let's play b5, break up his pawns. If he takes f7, I can't take b5 in that case. That's annoying. Because he has rook f5. So I take a3 probably. Is better. He has b6 though. b6, rook b3, b7. I'm a little bit tied down. We're both extremely low on time now. Let's go here. I'm going to try to check on a2. If he takes g5, check a2. Then I can go win f2. Let's get behind that pawn, first of all. Taking g5 is good now for him. He's going to lose on time. Wow. Same exact thing as last time. Unreal. Well, this time he's probably winning right up to the end, but the time just got the better of him. I think I misplayed it starting right about here when I allowed knight b5. I think queen d7 was probably a mistake. Maybe I should just settle for bishop takes c3 and go into that heavy piece endgame. Okay, let's have a look. So Ponziani. The game that I played against Alexiev, where I was white, he played d5, and then I played queen a4. Bishop d7, take, knight d4, queen d1, take, and black got some pretty good compensation for the pawn. I think both sides have to know what they're doing. But I just wanted to show a different line, and also this is the line I'm kind of used to, knight f6. And I think black doesn't have too many problems equalizing. As I mentioned, black just has to be careful about when they play d6, because you don't want to play it here. Bishop b5 check is crushing for white.
Check.
So c6 they can take, and black does not have time to take the knight because this pawn can move forward or take on b7, winning. And to compound that, there's queen a4 check even in a lot of cases, forking the knight and the king. So instead I just played this knight g6 move. Sorry, my arrows aren't showing up too fast. I think I'm lagging a little bit. But I played knight g6. Let me just turn the engine on right about here. Queen d4. I move the knight back. I think queen e7 also was okay. With the likely continuation, queen takes e4, queen takes e5. Just looking for a queen swap. But knight f6, knight takes g6, h takes g6, bishop e2. I played bishop e7. Computer says play b6, maybe getting ready for bishop c5, a more active post for the bishop, also enabling bishop b7. That has some merit, yeah. So d6, this all looked pretty standard. So I could play c5 according to the engine if I wanted, trying to fight for space, but that seems to perhaps unnecessarily weaken my queenside pawns. And now I have some split pawns here, isolated pawn on a7. I'm not sure how I feel about that line. So I did this repositioning of my minor pieces and tried to get this bishop out to a good diagonal. Knight c5. So it would have been interesting if he had played a move like h4 now. Just unabashedly playing for a kingside attack. I was thinking about rook e8 just to take control of the file. Say h5. I was planning on taking, I think. Bishop f5 is also good. And you can see the eval, it's about level, but this would be a much different game than what we had in the actual game. I mean, especially if white were to continue in castle queenside. But the thing is, like, I would have preferred to postpone castling. I just didn't see a really good move, a productive move, that could justify the postponement of castling. Like, bishop f5 suggests itself, but if they play g4, I think my bishop has to come back. So I castled, and he very quickly castled too, so it became clear he was just going to play for kind of a small edge. Yep, plays rook ae1, and I think he does have an edge here. I mean, it seems like white should be coming away with something. He takes c5. The computer likes this.
Check.
Rook e1. And now I express some frustration about where to put my queen, because I'd like to play queen f8, like maybe keeping open rook e8, trying to trade down the file. But knight b5 is an inconvenient move. I mean, by virtue of taking on c5 with the pawn, I have damaged my structure a little bit. And I have this pawn on a5, which does a good job of stopping b4, but it's also a target for the queen. So hence I preferred queen d8. And note that queen d7, while usually desirable, runs into g4 here, and my bishop's trapped. So I need to keep open the retreat to d7. So queen d8, queen e2. I played a4. I have mixed feelings about that move. I mean, I like the fact that he ended up playing a3, and I like the fact that this pawn is fixed on b2, but this does present itself as a target later. Like, now my rook has to stay here for the time being, guarding the pawn. Bishop d7, okay. Bishop g4. He's not making any mistakes. Yeah, and I think round about here, maybe I got a little too creative. Bishop d4 I thought was all right. That should be fine. We just post the bishop on a good square. I tried this rook lift, threatening rook f6. He just goes rook e2, nice and solid, defending the weak points. Yeah, and I think this was a definite mistake. My play was probably acceptable up to this point, but after queen d7, knight b5, I'm experiencing issues. So probably I should just play bishop takes c3 and get it over with. I was still under the delusion that my bishop might be better than his knight, but I think as soon as that knight hits b5 and attacks it, and if I don't have a move like rook f6, winning a pawn or something, I should just take a step back from the position and admit that my bishop, while normally favorable to a knight when there's pawns on both sides of the board, is not any better than his knight in this case. So, and I think after bishop takes, queen takes, probably something like, well, here allows queen a5 maybe. So I even have to watch it in this case. Just because I've simplified doesn't mean my defensive task is over. So yeah, I'm worse here too, I guess. About half a pawn according to the computer. So instead, rook e2, queen d7, knight b5. And I try to force the trade. You can see the eval goes up hugely in white's favor now, though. So that might be a losing mistake. Take, take. Yeah, so I thought the move that was just pretty strong here, which I missed initially, but then I saw while he was thinking is d6. Point of this move is that he's threatening rook e7, attacking my queen, and also threatening the pawn on f7 twice. So he's trying to go queen takes f7 then. And I don't think I can survive if I take this pawn because of rook e8 check, king here, queen takes f7, and it just looks like my defenses are getting shredded. There's no coordination here and here. I mean, queen g8 followed by queen h8 is going to force my king out into the open. So, I mean, if something like g5, I saw that he could do this and then rook e6 and win my queen at the very least. So I doubt I can hold here. Looks like d6 is just a winning move. +6 according to the computer. Yeah, I can't defend. If f6, hoping for rook e7, queen takes d6, then queen g3 is strong. Defending that pawn, looking at g6. If I play c5, trying to get the rook involved, queen takes g6 is just in time, threatening rook e8, which would force me to part with my queen. And if king f8, just rook e7. So everything's working for him now. So d6 was a big opportunity he missed. He just settled for queen e4. And then I got to play c5. Looks like I'm a lot worse still.
Check.
And I would have been scared if he had actually made a break for rook c8, like either here or maybe on the next move even. He played king f1. I think it's a useful move, just trying to get in the square of my pawn. But yeah, if he had played rook c8 now, and I take here, he takes c5. I have a passed pawn and an active rook, but his king will be able to hold that. And this d6 pawn, or the d pawn that's about to hit d6, is, I think, almost unstoppable. I'd probably have to play rook b6 to handle that, because in the line I was looking at d3 threatening mate, he just plays king e1. If I give a check here, he's just going king d1. He's not going to care at all about his kingside pawns when this pawn is like on the verge of promoting. So yeah, I think that was another opportunity that he had. He went passive for just a moment. Now I should be okay. I think, at least. At least I shouldn't be in as much trouble as I got into in the game. Maybe this is already bad. f5 is better according to the computer, trying to come to the f7 square. Plays king d1. Yeah, and here I got over-optimistic with rook b3. I was trying to go b5 and break up this c4 pawn, but I think this move is too slow. Then again, it may not be that bad. I don't know. We'll check with the engine, but the point is he can't play d6 because I can come back here. And then if d7, I do stop this pawn just in time. But after rook b3 and then rook e8, I didn't see how to proceed because, you know, b5, d6, and I can't stop this pawn once again. My king is just a spectator. He owns the e-file. So I went back to b6, but now I felt pretty cramped and unable to undertake anything meaningful, it seemed to me. White's about +1 according to the computer. g6 is my best move, yeah, but it doesn't do anything. I guess it's a question of how he's going to play for a win. I assume at some point he'll play rook c8. Maybe it's messy if he does it right away, kind of like the game, but still probably in White's favor. But I played rook a6, he went rook c8. b6, rook c6 check just looked awful, so I didn't want to do that. So I figured, I've got 30-some seconds left. He's got a minute and a half. Maybe I can try to stir up some trouble. And get my king active. And it worked because he started spending a lot of time. I don't know if I can hold this position. Probably not still. But it was something. Yeah, and 17 seconds left. I just started taking stuff. Here I can't take on b5. That's crucial because he can play rook check. That should win for him. The engine was suggesting rook takes g7 for a second, which is also probably winning. But this just leads to a king and pawn endgame. And whenever you can simplify to a king and pawn endgame, you should prefer that, even over winning material. Yeah, like king c5. He has a million more tempos than I do. He's just going to out-tempo me easily and probably go win this pawn. If here he can do king d4, and he's going to outflank me, and eventually I'll lose this pawn. Something like this. He's going to go get that. Not to mention he has a majority over here. So... Yep, and even at the end, I'm pretty certain he's just winning rook b3, and he didn't get a move off in time. But even just like this is likely just a win. Rook takes b6, rook check, king b5. I would assume with 3 versus 1 and all of his pawns connected, I don't think I have enough hope with this pawn to hold out. So, yeah, another game where, the time favored me at the end. This was just like my blitz game the other day and my previous game with this opponent in the 15-minute category. But time management is huge in these non-increment games, especially. Trying to pinpoint like the move that I would really do over, and I think it's this queen d7 move. Although I'm already a little bit worse right now. You're seeing the computer was liking white by about a half pawn, but queen d7 presented some issues. I think I might be close to losing. Certainly after c6, I'm losing because of that d6 move that he had. Maybe I'll have to look into a more aggressive line against the Ponziani, like the d5 variation instead of knight f6. I mean, I don't think my position was bad, but white had a space advantage with no risk whatsoever in this game. But a pretty fun one, nonetheless. Hope you guys enjoyed it. So I'll be back tomorrow with another video. And have a good start to your week, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.